It may, or may not, amaze the scientists who will eventually discover that each of us is a mini-universe unto ourselves, and that what science up until now has called an expanding universe is simply the growing or expansion phase of the body that started from its inception or Big Bang and continues to expand and grow until such a time that it reaches a peak in its epoch, upon which point the body universe will begin to contract again. This is the paradox of duality, where each beginning must be followed by an end, which is paradoxically in tandem with its new beginning. If we are to look at the eyes, which have been pronounced to be the windows to the soul, and see the pupil as the black holes of the galaxy, one can begin to appreciate the innate complexity and entanglement that we share with the external universe. The pupil becomes the student of the external by taking in information at the event horizon, which is what mystics and sages for millennia have called the eternal now. This is what science has recently called the point of no return, since the past and the future are no longer separated, and all the information from the external event is transmitted to the internal and then interpreted by the seer. At this stage, there is an energetic release that occurs, which physicist Stephen Hawking has called Hawking radiation, which reduces the mass and energy of the black hole itself. This naturally must occur, because the internal science of paradox has always shown that when something goes in, something else must come back out at the exact same moment. This is the merging and emerging of what existentialist philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre called in his epic work Being and Nothingness. The vortex of the black hole pupil is where matter and antimatter collide, and the observer is inseparable from the observed, which is why this is called reality. This is because at this crux, time is both eternal and finished, at once. As in science, particles and antiparticles are paired, creating the duality paradox of reality, where one pair is pulled into the vortex to be processed in the infinite fractal of the mind, while the other pair is released into the finite realm of form and tangibility. The particles that are released create a glow, which scientists now call Hawking radiation. The Gnostic would kindly explain to the scientist that this glow is the color of our eyes, otherwise known as the iris. The 0 point of the singularity is the eternal now, which has also been called quite accurately enlightenment. Light is counteracted by darkness, and that which was previously hidden is at once unveiled. It took Stephen Hawking and many other scientists many years to come to the realization that black holes were not a void where energy was simply taken in to be lost forever. Whereas if they had spoken to any experienced mystic, sage, or Gnostic, this fact would have been shown immediately. But such is the state of the sequestered scientific mentality that must prove to itself the existence of the eternal paradox over and over and over again. This is simply one example of why science that exists in solitary confinement without the wisdom of the true gnosis of meditation is a most dangerous and destructive tool. To be fair, not all scientists took immediate agreement with this initial supposition. Science, however, ultimately fails to observe that all of its accomplishments exist primarily from the constant experimentation of various combinations of elements put together in random orders until something works, without realizing why it actually works. The scientific mind is concerned only with the external how of a thing, while the internal science of mysticism or gnosis looks to the importance of why. Does it look like science is concerned with the question of why, when there is enough nuclear weaponry to destroy this world 1,000 times over? They simply say, how can we make a nuclear bomb? And then wash their hands clean over any effects that their experimental combination of matter will have in future events. This is not to knock down the totally wondrous art of science itself and all of the wondrous things that can occur because of it, only to state that its progeny are often blinded in their acts of specialization and their effects to the infinite links throughout the web of our existence. If the thesis of science would integrate with the antithesis of spirituality, there would be a true synthesis, and this harmonization of the polarities would definitively be able to create a wondrous existence beyond imagination. If the external continuously refuses to acknowledge the internal, the only possibility is a continued downward spiral into the abyss of duality. Why is this important? To look back upon the black hole as connected to our pupil, we see that there is a singularity point that both exists and insists at once. This is also why science has seen black holes as singularities, which the meditator would call the living now. Of course, it's a singularity. It is where the external meets the internal, and the two exchange notes, so to speak, which also involves a transaction of energy distribution. The concern here is with a stream of science that is bent upon usurping our free will and awareness and taking the human species to the next level of control that is beyond our personal reckoning or imagination. This scientific goal, as one may already be aware, is the reaching of what has been called the technological singularity, whereby humans are fully integrated and merged with technology and actually become cyborgs. That is the promise and goal of the singularitarians, and in case no one else has noticed, the governments of the world and the secret societies are all on board and have been putting the pieces of this plan together for quite some time already. The general idea of the singularity is that machines will reach a point where they become as intelligent as humans, and then from that point on develop their intelligence exponentially, and humans who are then merged with their computer technology will by default also become exponentially more intelligent and will eventually spread out into the cosmos and take over everything. If this sounds exactly like the idea that was presented in Star Trek, with a nefarious force called the Borg taking over everyone and everything in the universe to become a part of the collective, that's because it is. As previously outlined, we are already experiencing life through a singularity point that is transitioned between the past and future with the eternal now, with our pupils being the black hole of our own universe, because we truly are students, pupils to our own life experience. If the human body and brain at the moment is likened to a computer, we are in divide duals, individuals, because our processing system is a dual core, just like your computer may have a dual core processor installed on it. This is the reason that we experience everything as a duality of good and evil, because everything is split into opposites. By usurping the singularity of the pupil black hole that we are currently experiencing and merging it with a technological singularity, this would change the flux density of the experiencer-receiver relationship, essentially doubling it without the involvement of time. This would create a bridge that one could liken to having two pathways. Truly, it would create a choice, whereby the first way would keep one in what we now know as reality and our current duality matrix, and the second way would lead to what I would define as quadrality, wherein the individual would be turned into an inquadrual, or a being with four perspectives. This goal is alluded to most heavily in the Microsoft operating system Windows logo with its four windows. The four windows or eyes to the soul instead of the duality of our current two. Manly P. Hall also mentioned this in several of his works, where he stated that the occult anatomy of man would be changed, whereby mankind would be endowed with two spines, which would obviously serve the quad-core body computer more effectively in the fourth dimensional matrix. Whether or not people like Ray Kurzweil are aware of this or not makes no difference, since this is what meditation is able to teach. And Kurzweil's idea of what the singularity is all about is skewed at best, because these scientists ignore the most important area of this entire operation, the occult. The transcendence of humanity into the quadrality is simply about increasing our slavery within this system. How so? Is a quad-core computer able to do more work than a dual-core computer? It most certainly is able to do more, and so it most certainly does more. The philosophy of logic will tell the observer the same thing, that once mankind has attained the ability to do more, it will also be coerced to do more. It is simple mathematics. The promise of a much longer lifespan is simply a hell in disguise, since the inquadrual man and woman may live to be 1,000, but their so-called retirement from work will simply be pushed back in the exact ratio that exists right now. Work 950 years and retire with whatever little energy remains in you. Judges in the court system have been priming the general public in preparation of this eventuality for a while now by delivering sentences of 300, 500, or even 1,000 years to certain criminals. These sentences will, at some point, actually be servable, either within the physical realm or within a virtual reality of the mind that makes the convicted felon feel as if they were incarcerated for those exact lengths of time. The so-called exponential increase in knowledge that is being promised by the technologists is simply going to be a necessary byproduct of the need to access more intellectual resources to accomplish the necessary tasks of the brave new world that each inquadrual happens to find themselves in. The same hierarchies that exist in this reality will still be prevalent in the next, whether intellectual, economical, or otherwise. This work seeks to teach Ray Kurzweil and everyone else like him about the occult nature of what he is seeking, as well as to inform the general public about the greater reason for the integrated conspiracy that may not have made much sense up until the present. Unless one understands the larger vision of a goal, the separate pieces that are involved in the assembly of a plan will only remain uncorrelated, confusing, or most tragic of all, unimportant to the outside observer. Even though a program, whether internally or externally utilized, may have many separate constituents involved that may seem disparate, can nevertheless form a tapestry of coordination that is simply being misunderstood. When the overall schematic or theme of the operational goal is known, that which was seemingly uncoordinated is at once turned into an assembly of interconnecting pieces that makes perfect sense. Those who deny this phenomenon are simply that, deniers. To sit outside during a perfectly clear blue sky day and witness numerous military aircraft constantly fly back and forth and turn a completely clear sky day into a foggy and hazy soup of chemical blurriness is disturbing to say the least. Out of fairness, even if this phenomenon did not involve chemicals, this is still an unnatural occurrence of the highest order, and it would have to be asked at this point, would it not be a fair and reasonable request to simply have our skies remain contrail free so that every species can enjoy the skies as they were intended? No, it seems that even this is too much to ask, because the insanity has gotten to such a fever pitch that even this itself is denied, because apparently the spreading of persistent contrails is all in your mind too. You didn't witness that contrail spread out over the last several hours, turning into a cirrus stratus type cloud formation. That was just a normal and natural cloud that floated in from the east or west, or whatever direction you did not happen to be looking towards. This is, quite unfortunately, how far removed most of humanity is from their own environment. When the population that is concerned with looking down at their phones to receive or send the latest text message pronounces with no satire that if they were being chemically sprayed from the sky like cockroaches, they would know about it, there is no recourse. The irony of their contradictory statements as mixed with their actions is, quite sadly, completely lost on them. It is not the object of this work to get into the science of every one of the various chemicals and their compositions that are being sprayed down upon this world, as many astute researchers have already done that and are continuing to do so. The main basis that needs to be mentioned that has not been focused upon is with a slight change in wording, which hopefully will add another layer of perspective to what the chemtrail phenomenon truly is all about. Many have become aware that chemtrails are also referred to as geoengineering, but the key word that should be at the center of attention is terraforming. The word terra is a Latin noun that means earth, land, ground, region, while forming is also etymologically founded in the Latin with the term forma, meaning form, figure, mold, pattern, beauty. This is where the English word formula was derived, because to terraform is to change the mold, formula, beauty, and pattern of the Earth, or whichever planet that this schematic is being perpetrated upon. The connection to chemtrailing, geoengineering, and terraforming is found in the Chinese word dichouwa, that means geochemical, and also terraforming. This program is truly a geochemical operation that is going to completely change the entire basis, structure, mold, and pattern of what everyone right now knows of as the Earth. Terraforming is also a long process, which means that its effects are not felt all at once, such as in a nuclear explosion. This is the perfect method to use for a docile populace that is able to constantly adjust themselves to the ongoing changes that are taking place, while at the same time denying to themselves that anything is actually wrong with their environmental situation. People do not want to think about this because it is not within their mental realm of possibilities. This topic is something that just happens in the movies, which is why the entertainment industry is also an effective psychological gatekeeper in the fact that once something is touted as being a form of entertainment, it cannot be recognized by the layman populace as being possible within their own reality. This is a form of psychological disassociation. Nevertheless, this place we currently call home is being changed permanently with a specific end purpose in mind. That purpose is the creation of a new world, completely unrecognizable from the one that we are currently in, for the creation of a new species of mankind. The current version of Homo sapiens is called Hu-Man, based upon the Egyptian deity Hu, since this is derived from the Sanskrit verb hu, meaning sacrifice, one to whom sacrifices are made. One can easily denote that Hu-Man has always meant that man has made constant sacrifices to Hu, an Egyptian deity which people now refer to as God, since the word God is seen even by the Oxford English Dictionary as being derived from the Sanskrit Hu. This is also shown in reference to the Latin term manu, that meant manna, which is a miraculous food from God. From Hu-Man to Manhu. This clearly shows the cannibalistic method that the demons of this world use in their regeneration program for us. The current version of man, Hu-Man, is going extinct, which is why there has been a proliferation of movies from Hollywood detailing both the extinction of man and this world. Do not take this to mean that it is the total end of the earth or man. It is simply the end of this earth as you and I know it. and the type of man and woman that we currently are, which is destined by the rulers to both be changed during this pause between the ages that we currently find ourselves in. There will be a new world and a new type of mankind for that world, because the current version of what we are will not be allowed into the new age. Do billions of people still believe in Jesus? Then we are not in the full realm of the Aquarius age, because the gods would not allow this. That is how this operation works, and denial will do absolutely nothing to stop it. In fact, denial simply ensures that everyone stays out of the way from those who are carrying out their orders for this agenda. This is why, without explaining themselves, certain researchers have been saying that the lion sleeps no more, because Leo the lion is the age that is opposite to Aquarius, just as Virgo was opposite to Pisces, which is the reason that the age of Jesus the fish was given immaculate birth from Virgo the Virgin, otherwise known as Mary. At this time, these research inspirationalists would like you and I to wake up from our slumber and rise like lions, because that is what the Zodiac program requires. As the second Matrix movie portrayed in the scene with Neo and the Architect, we are about to reach the so-called integral anomaly, which creates the unsolvable paradox of 1 equals 0. This is known in our reality as the singularity. At this point, the Matrix needs to be reset by the flood, Aquarius, and then brought back to life by the lion's grip, which in Freemasonry is a symbol of eternal regeneration or everlasting life. It is a battery cycle, which is shown right on your computer with the word Li-ion battery. Li-ion is of course lion. This is also the reason for such organizations as the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and is the basis for all of the New Age works and symbolism that is in preparation for the new Golden Age that is upon us. To be primordial means to go back to the beginning, or to be put into our original state once again. And seeing that the word primordial also means cardinal, capital, head, main, prime, it is most likely the reason that the capital of each state is funding this adventure, where the singularity will simply mark the ending of this era as a species before we are brought back once again to a primitive beginning on the one side, or to a fourth dimensional brave new world scenario on the other. This will be dependent upon whether or not one decides to merge with the technology and become a cyborg, or not. Either way, the first shall be the last, and the last shall be the first, and the entire cycle will start all over again. That's when dust shall be the serpent's meat, because the one side of the equation will be taken back to original sin, just after the fall of man came about with the original arrival of the moon, sin, and the beginning of our duality in knowledge. This will be the situation for those who refuse to merge into the technological singularity, while those who choose to become cyborgs will be transitioned into the alternate quadrality, where their free will is stripped from them even further. That was one of the very subtle yet profound allegories in the Architect scene of the second Matrix movie, whereby Neo made the choice of love, thus evolution, seeing that the first 4 letters of evolution is love spelled backwards. This choice required that the human race would go extinct according to the Architect, and with the opening of the door to love, evolution, Neo symbolized both the extinction of humankind and the next stage of evil, Evol, that is prepared for everyone who chooses to become a cyborg, and thus more machine-like.
is interesting reading your reactions. Your 5 predecessors were, by design, based on a similar predication, a contingent affirmation that was meant to create a profound attachment to the rest of your species, facilitating the function of the One. While the others experienced this in a very general way, your experience is far more specific, vis-a-vis love. Which brings us at last to the moment of truth, wherein the fundamental flaw is ultimately expressed and the anomaly revealed as both beginning and end. There are 2 doors. The door to your right leads to the source and the salvation of Zion. The door to your left leads back to the Matrix, to her, and to the end of your species. As you adequately put, the problem is choice. But we already know what you are going to do, don't we? Already I can see the chain reaction, the chemical precursors that signal the onset of an emotion designed specifically to overwhelm logic and reason. An emotion that is already blinding you from the simple and obvious truth. She is going to die, and there is nothing you can do to stop it.
A surprise.
You played a very dangerous game.
Change always is.
Just how long do you think this peace is going to last?
As long as it can. What about the others?
What others?
The ones that want out.
Obviously, they will be freed.
I have your word.
What do you think I am? Human?
We were afraid we might not find you.
Everything's okay now.
Look, look!
Just look at that. Beautiful. Did you do that?
For now.
That's nice. I know he'd love it.
Will we ever see him again?
I suspect so. Someday.
Did you always know?
Oh, no. No, I didn't. But I believed.
At the moment and throughout this transition period, one can see that the entire New Age schematic is simply the opposite polarity of the battery that is necessary to stir the masses to ensure that both sides of the zodiac wake up in tandem with each other. If Leo the Lionheart does not rise from his slumber to ensure social justice against the unemotional, detached, machine-like heartlessness of Aquarius, there will be no polarity, and the battery cycle of slavery will actually end. Does this not explain why we are now seeing the greatest forms of social justice, as well as the worst kind of social injustice, happening at the same time? For every victory there is a loss, and for every loss a victory. The cycle must always complete itself. This cyborg agenda truly is about getting rid of the heart. Here is what Ray Kurzweil states on page 306 of his book, The Singularity is Near. If statements such as these do not shake you to your very soul, then you can know with certainty that your decision is already made. You will become a cyborg and move on to the more elongated and technological form of slavery that awaits. It is truly that simple, and the choice has effectively been made for the masses who cannot fathom the thought of peeling themselves away from their phones for more than 5 seconds. If people think that the RFID chip is the mark of the beast, they are sorely mistaken. We had the mark of the beast betas on us at birth because the magician gods of this operation already see us all as beasts. That's why we are called mankind, because we are a kind of man, but not actually man. The RFID chip is simply a precursor technology for the masses to accept implantable technology, which will escalate from that point on, until those who have made the choice to go in that direction are full cyborgs. This is why the environment needs to change for this plan to work, which involves the terraforming of this Earth through the heavy use of chemtrails. The RFID may also act as a server link to switch on the nanotechnology that is being chemically sprayed into the skies and atmosphere, with much of the intended chemical fallout being breathed in by all of us on a daily basis. What type of technology has already gotten into us that needs to be turned on? The technological takeover involves one of the chemicals that is being sprayed, which in high doses affects the nervous system of the body. Barium is one of the main chemicals, which will be an agent that works in tandem with what the technologists are calling foglets. What are foglets? They are a collection of nanotechnological devices that are also labeled utility fog, which link together in a complex network in the air or entire atmosphere of a planet and exert force in any direction while communicating with each other. This means that this nanotech can actually change or replace physical objects in the environment at will, thus creating a virtual reality within this reality. If researchers want to understand the true basis of Project Bluebeam, they need to look to this technology and its enormous implications, because once this nanotech is completely linked up in the air around the entire globe and connected to the computer cloud internet, there will quite literally be Skynet, and it will be able to change the entire fabric of our reality. This is the reason that something like an RFID chip would need to be physically inserted into the human biology to switch the nanobots that are in our biology on, and effectively give this technology the power over the entire body-mind nervous system to change the way that this reality is perceived from the inside out. If anybody who thinks that these ideas are stretching boundaries or are crazy conspiracies will sincerely need to take the time and effort to actually read what the scientists of the world are doing, have been doing, and what their intentions are for us and this world. Petty little comments and bickering back and forth in argumentation does nothing except to keep us out of the way, which those in power love to see happening. This is not a game, and the governments of the world are all heavily involved. A big part of this process is the reverse engineering of the brain, so that nanobots can be instituted into each person's brain, which would take over the neurological connections of the mind and integrate themselves with the nanobots that will also be, or already are, a part of the nervous system, so that each person, cyborg, would not be able to tell the difference between the reality that they are in right now and the virtual reality that will be superimposed upon them. This is why the Obama administration in 2014 announced the $100 million Brain Mapping or Brain Initiative project, the purpose of which is to reverse engineer the entire brain and understand how it operates and functions. That's the public face of it, with its false promises to help cure diseases such as Alzheimer's, which is increasing exponentially due to the aluminum being sprayed from the skies for their terraforming side of the project. These entities are sick. The factual basis of this and every other so-called project is that every key player in this world is on board with the major changeover of the ages and the extinction of the human. It was the same with the government investment in the Human Genome Project, which again was simply another step towards the eventual integration of humans with nanobots and the complete takeover of this reality into the next virtual matrix reality. Genetically modified organisms in food, drink, bacteria, animals, and anything else that can be genetically modified is a necessary construct to ensure that the populace becomes modified enough to be able to adapt to the inevitable cyborg takeover, where humans will be outfitted with insertable technology that will divide them from this reality and prepare them for the new world that will be unsuitable for humans as we now know. The nanobot technology in the brain and nervous system will not work to its full potential operational specs and coordinate itself with our current biology without the enormous changes to the physiology that have been taking place due to fluoridation in water, chemicals in food and drink, the spraying of the skies, mercury and other toxins in vaccinations, the electromagnetic soup due to wireless technology, radiation from microwave food, television, cell phones, nuclear disasters such as Fukushima, and so on. Most important of all, this takeover cannot work without effacing all of us from everything that we previously knew to be normal. This is why the destruction of the family unit is so important, as well as the movement of people away from physical social gatherings and into online social networks. Even the termination of paper currency being moved into the all-digital tails from the cryptocurrency realm is obviously a part of this schematic. This all separates and divides everyone. It does not bring us closer together. It also brings people into a closer relation with their technology, as opposed to those who are around them. How many can resist saying that they feel more comfortable on their computer, phone, or in front of their television screen than with another living being? How many know or are complicit themselves of saying that they actually love their cell phone, computer, or other pieces of technology, even such as a vehicle? The tragedy of it all is so terribly sad. The very fabric of your free will is at stake, and nearly everyone is concerned with where their next piece of entertainment is going to come from. The context of that quote is that what is considered to be your uniqueness, individuality, and free will is, according to the technologists and those involved in this operation, not a plus. They want to see a hive mind, in exact accordance with what the Star Trek series showed, with the cyborgs being taken over at any given moment to serve the purposes of the collective mind. At one moment, each sentient being seems to retain some semblance of what could be called individuality, and then the next moment there is nothing of the kind. They are merged into the collective to serve one purpose. That is the ultimate goal of this agenda, and they are succeeding. After the creation of AI, or artificial intelligence, that is able to authentically pass what is called the Turing test, this AI will be given the opportunity and endowment to download all of the exoteric knowledge of mankind. This is why Google has set up the Google Books Library project, where they are scanning every available book and putting it onto the internet. Not for every one of us to have access to for our own pleasure or education. No, this is for the eventual AI that will educate themselves with all of its material in a matter of nanoseconds to completely understand the human psyche and be more effective at taking us over. Does anyone really believe that any major corporation does anything with goodwill and intentions for the benefit of all without serving some ulterior and nefarious purpose? If anyone does, they have been duped, and there is no amount of evidence that will prove these facts to them anyhow. With enough time spent with technology, and enough separation from previous activities that were considered normal, and with enough enticing promises of longer lifespans, disease-free lifestyles, better education, and a general sense of utopia, the great majority of the public will gladly and willingly merge with the technology that is placed before them and truly become the mindless zombie cyborgs that so many already adore and cherish spending their time being entertained by now anyways. Is there a way for this not to happen? Yes, by making yourself and everyone that you can aware of this horrendous possibility, regardless of how crazy it may sound to them at the moment, because very soon it is going to be obvious that this is not so crazy, especially as millions upon millions of people begin to lose their jobs all at once during the AI spring. As bad as that sounds, it will be a minor scratch compared to the effects that follow. This is the reason that the governments and states want everyone dependent upon them, and for no one to be self-sufficient in terms of growing their own food or maintaining a home or shelter. Every piece of the plan serves its purpose to funnel everyone towards the cybernetic future. This is exactly why each one of us must maintain as much self-sufficiency as we possibly can, and get everyone that you can to participate as well. This also ties into the near-future energy crisis that has shown major signs of fluctuation and instability to anyone paying attention. Since the world economy is centered around energy, this will play a pivotal role in all future developments that continue to escalate. For so many, this transition will be difficult to fathom until it is too late, which is when it becomes obvious. This is not about the evolution of us, it is about the devolution of our species. A clear and concise refusal to physically merge with any form of technology is the only clear-cut method to ensuring that this takeover does not occur. If not for the majority, then at least for yourself.
We have only bits and pieces of information, but what we know for certain is that at some point in the early 21st century, all of mankind was united in celebration. We marveled at our own magnificence as we gave birth to AI.
AI? You mean artificial intelligence?
A singular consciousness that spawned an entire race of machines.